subscription expired.
I just pulled the trigger on the YouTube. If you have any concern for privacy, leave it at the door because we are live online with the San Carlos Computer Club. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions. I come here each Tuesday to give you an opportunity, or to give myself an opportunity, to answer questions randomly without any prompting, without any background. Hopefully I can help you with your tech needs and to share some tech news and some funny stories. Judy, you want to start?
I have a question.
Okay.
Actually, about 5 days ago, I was trying to track an Amazon package with the Amazon app.
Okay.
It kept saying to me that, sorry, we're having a problem. We're working hard to fix it. Now, this was 5 days. So this morning, I really got kind of annoyed, and I went on a chat with them. So their answer was, so it says, sorry, something went wrong. It's still there. We're working on fixing it. It's a C something error. So I go on chat with Amazon, and she says, oh, well, delete the app. And I said, well, you are aware that you cannot really delete an app. I said, you're aware that it just goes into the cloud and it's always there. It's not deleted ever. She said, yes, I'm aware of that. I work on an Android. I said, oh, okay. So what's your next step? Well, then it's reboot your iPad. So both of those things have been done, and it still gives me the same message.
And this is when you're trying to track a package?
On the app, Amazon app.
And it gives you an error. So like, that doesn't sound like anything to do with your app or your account. That sounds like an Amazon services issue.
That's what I thought too, but don't you think that the Amazon services rep would say, oh, we're having an issue with our app? No, it says, sorry, something went wrong. We're working on fixing that, parentheses, CS11. And I typed all that into her, and she said, well, reboot your iPad. So it doesn't keep, it's still there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, did you order?
Is it CS11?
No, this is Amazon.
Does it have a
Capital C, capital S11.
no hyphen?
No hyphen.
Have you ordered other stuff down here on your Amazon West?
It's not coming.
The very first thing that comes out from help desk is,
Going to Amazon Mexico. Here?
Judy, I've Googled this, and the very first thing that pops up with the Google search is how to fix Amazon CS11 error code in Android and iOS. And it says here, a corrupt application cache is another reason the CS11 error code appears on the Amazon app. And so what this would be is
That's my question then. How do I clear that cache?
well, it sounds like you were given good advice,
But it didn't do it.
but it didn't fix it. So you would think that removing the app and reinstalling it should clear the cache.
It did not.
Let's see, there's a force quit and relaunch, update the app, reset the
There's no
app
place to
cache.
update the
Drive a
app.
spike through your computer.
Here, is it?
Is that
I
one of
don't
the
think so,
options?
Unless it means it's updated.
Listen to this. On Android, you can go in and you can clear the data, but on iPhone, the only way to clear an Amazon app cache is to uninstall and reinstall the app.
I did that.
You know, I wonder if that cache doesn't end up being part of your iCloud backups. And what you might try doing is go into iCloud under settings, look for the Amazon app and make sure it's off under iCloud, under the backups. Yeah, it's actually, you'd go into iCloud, you go into backups, and then you'd see a list of everything that's going into the backup.
Okay.
And it includes all your different apps and settings, and turn off the app for Amazon if it's not off. In fact, you can give some real soul searching about this. You may not need any of those apps for your backup.
I may not need any of them backing up, but when I get a new device, I need all those backup.
Well, again,
Otherwise, I have to reinstall them all separately.
well, they are inventoried in your, I mean, this is another discussion, but they're inventoried as a list of things that you've installed in the past. And so you're going to be able to install those without a problem because they're in the App Store as apps that you've used before. So what will happen if they're not part of your backup is you just have to reinstall them yourself.
I know, that is the problem.
Yeah, but you would, you can, okay. In this case, we're trying to solve a problem that sounds like the cache may be getting backed up like settings for the app. So going back to that, I would make sure it was off, uninstall the app, maybe even restart your device, then reinstall the app. It would have no settings, so you'd have to sign into it again.
I had to do that anyway.
Well, and hopefully it doesn't have a cache anymore, and it has to repropagate that.
So I go into the iCloud.
Mm-hmm. This is the only place I would think that you would be getting something again after you've uninstalled it. I don't know if this works, but it might.
No, it was really, because I really had done all those things before she told me to do them again. And so I did them again, and it's
Another thing that's in this page, and I'll put a link of this into our document so you can go through it as well. Double check your date and time. Okay. People forget about stuff like that. Your date, something could have happened. You could have lost internet connection.
It's 10:08 a.m. Tuesday, February 28th.
Yeah, that looks right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people forget about things like date and time, but they affect so many things, especially when it comes to encryption, when it comes to connecting to services. That date and time is critical. You won't get Windows updates if your date and time are incorrect, all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm going to stick this link in our document.
Well, you could always turn it off for now, take it out, we put it in, you can always turn it back on.
I did that. You mean the app? Yeah, I did that already.
But you said it wouldn't come out.
One item. It's not like you have to get all
No, I understand that, and I did that.
You took it off of the cloud. Is what I'm saying.
No, I have not.
That's what I'm saying.
Wait a second. What do you distinguish what you mean by taking it off the cloud? Because are we talking about what I just suggested?
You said to turn
Okay.
it off
Yeah.
on the cloud and
Yes.
then go back when you do fix it.
Yeah. And then you can turn it back on.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you getting a new tablet?
No.
Just an error message in Amazon for tracking shipping.
Even though I can track it, everything on the Amazon.com webpage.
Well, and if you couldn't, then most definitely it would be their problem.
Right. But no, it's, and we just had an update not too long ago. Not too long ago.
So
Amazon breaks their stuff all the time.
Mhm.
One update
And
will
as soon
break
as my
things
order
you've been
gets
doing,
here, I don't care.
right?
Not
Have you
here, but in
figured out where it
Nogales.
is?
Huh?
Have you figured out where
It's on its way.
on its way?
Amazon arrived in Phoenix this morning.
Oh,
I mean, sorry, arrived in Tucson this morning, and then went over to Phoenix.
oh.
Then it's gonna come back here.
that is crazy.
Mine's going to Carla Marshall's house in
Like an
Tucson,
airline
so it's not coming here.
Well, they must have some sort of automation involved. Why would they take it from Tucson, send it back to Phoenix?
Because Phoenix is probably where the hub is.
It's huge.
Has anybody done any Mexican Amazon ordering this year? In this area?
Did it in Guayabitos.
Oh, okay. Do you have a warehouse in your Guayabitos?
It's in, must be in PV.
I've had stuff show up in 2-3 days now.
Well, the problem is, I ordered it, but I went over to the office at the motel. The owner's name is Chris, who knows me. Anyway, I said I want to order, because I never ordered from Amazon there. I said, I want to order from Amazon, what's the correct address? So he gives me all the correct address. I see his pile of packages for people there, and he gives me the correct address. So I order the stuff, put the correct address in, doesn't come on the day it's supposed to. I get this notice It's the wrong address. DHL couldn't find me. So I answered back, and all I put down was the name of the motel.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it got delivered that afternoon. I could have just put the name of the motel. I mean, everybody knows that motel.
When I was living in Scottsdale for
Okay.
months.
Apps using iCloud.
Yeah.
Right?
In the morning and arrived in the afternoon. Within hours.
Do we not see Amazon
There
here?
is no Amazon there.
I need new stuff.
The facilities in Chandler.
Oh, no, no.
How big that new place, the Amazon warehouse is in,
Hello, Paul, welcome.
Furthermore, there is no app using
oh my
iCloud on my
God, it's
iPad.
huge.
To add to that,
Good morning, Paul.
Morning. I'm gonna mute.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Well, Judy, look at that article that how to fix Amazon CS11 error code in Android and iOS, and maybe there's something there that your tech support didn't go through. Since it's a cache error, you would think just refreshing that cache would make the difference. And it says explicitly right here, the only way to refresh the cache on iOS is to uninstall and reinstall the application.
no, I can track it on Amazon. It's not-
Have we got any other questions or news or topics people want to talk about? All right.
He's sarcastic, but he's very erudite and he's knowledgeable, and I think he has a decent. He was talking about artificial intelligence. I recommend that you go on YouTube and just type in John Oliver on AI. And he's talking about the chat sheet
Yep.
thing that we discussed on writing term papers and that kind of thing. Very interesting and very snide.
Thank you. Good.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ray, because I watched that and I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good primer for anybody that's wondering what's going on with the Chat GPT stuff. What kind of things that we're and he makes some really good analogies that make it easy to wrap things. What kinds of things we're anamorphizing about this
Things you don't even consider or think about. It's like, whoa, walking into a store with your phone,
Sure.
you're tracked.
Mhm.
Picking up certain objects within the store, you're tracked, and all of a sudden you have advertisements for that on your phone.
Yeah. Is that weird? Okay, any of you been watching the Murdoch trial? This is very interesting. Tracking you, your phone is tracking your steps, even if you don't have the step thing on.
Which trial is this?
Murdoch,
Alec Murdoch,
he's
Okay.
in South Carolina.
I haven't paid any attention to
He's
it.
just killing his wife and son.
Oh, yeah.
okay, so they did the whole phone analysis. They had the whole thing where his steps were, what time he started the steps, how many steps he took each time, and this one time, right when they were killed, he had all these steps.
Well, what are steps? There's no steps.
You know, your phone.
Keeps track of how many
when you
steps you're
walk,
making.
Your steps.
Oh, you're talking about the 1,000 like people exercise?
Yeah, yeah.
But your phone's tracking you even if you don't have it on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they went through the whole phone. Also, your OnStar is tracking you. The OnStar knows when you open the car door.
Sure, yeah.
It's just weird. This whole
Even if
thing.
you're not, but even if you don't subscribe to OnStar?
My car doesn't have.
Well, you know, there's an interesting story about this I put in our lineup
Yeah, OnStar.
Volkswagen.
about Volkswagen,
Yeah.
and they were the police contacted Volkswagen because the car had been stolen with a little boy in it.
Yes.
And they
Oh, yeah.
immediately contacted Volkswagen to get and they wouldn't release that information because they hadn't paid for the service. It wasn't that they didn't have the information. It was that the car didn't have that service paid for. And the police actually brought out a credit card, paid $150 so that they would give them the tracking information.
Now, Luke,
Was that stateside?
Yeah, that was here in the States.
And he was
And-
through
and-
and dumped him off. Like,
Yeah, well, this is Volkswagen. Volkswagen keeps getting caught doing appalling things.
Mexico State?
This is in the US, yeah, in the US.
so anyway, this thing tracked all of his steps and they had it all on there. They knew exactly what time it was and how many steps he took.
Did they nail
And
him?
this one, they haven't nailed him yet.
he's in trial.
Is he
The
guilty?
trial's on
He's
TV.
in trial.
Is he,
innocent.
is he
He's
guilty?
innocent until proven guilty.
Is he guilty?
He's innocent until proven guilty.
You're the judge. Yes or no?
No, I'm not judging.
You don't know. yet.
You don't have an opinion, you don't have
I
opinion
have
on
an
it?
opinion, but I don't believe in that. I believe in innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our opinion is, he's guilty, he's lying, because he's lied about so much. He's
I
lied.
know enough about him to know he's a master criminal. Which I-
Hold on. You're being facetious, right? Because he went to go kill somebody with his phone in his pocket. He's not a master criminal. Anybody from this generation should know you don't go kill somebody with your phone in your pocket.
You're a lawyer in the state of
You know, you don't need
South
capital
Carolina.
either.
Right. You don't invade the Capitol with your phone in your pocket. You don't take Instagram videos outside the Capitol saying you're selling real estate.
In the speaker's office.
So think about this. He started years ago. He has a law firm. Now think about this. A small town law firm, and you're making millions. There's something wrong. He stole. He was a ambulance chaser. So he had clients. His housekeeper fell and killed herself in his house. And she had insurance, and he stole all that money from her heirs. He stole money from, and he bamboozled all of his partners.
Yeah, he was never held accountable for a lot of that, and he wasn't tried and convicted on those charges.
But he's going to be
Well,
tried and convicted on
okay,
those
so
charges.
I was in London during OJ, and people said to me, is he guilty? And I said, I believe in the justice system, so I have to believe.
You have
Now,
to
in
wait and
retrospect,
see
do
what
you think that justice was served in that case?
I don't know about that.
I don't think so.
And I have quite different about the justice system at this particular time too.
It's fouled up, but in terms of OJ, I mean, he got away with murder. I don't make him a murderer.
Oh,
Anybody can go and crazy.
Illinois. I'm like trying to figure out where it was. And I'm like, they mention the small community, they mention street intersections, but they don't mention what state this community is in.
And they dropped off the kid at an intersection.
That's right. In the end, the information from Volkswagen didn't help because they'd already found the kid.
They get the money back.
Oh, probably not. But since then, Volkswagen's come out with a statement saying how there was a breakdown
Oh, yeah.
in their relationship with law enforcement. It was a third party.
Yeah, it's always somebody's fault, but not theirs.
You're right. That explains it. They were following a script and they weren't thinking correctly and whatever. Hey, Chester, you got your hand up. What would you like to contribute?
Well, I watched the trial entirety.
Oh,
I was very impressed, like whoever was speaking. I was totally impressed with what they could do with their cell phone information. But I'd also add that they could even tell what speed he was driving on the highway. Yeah, my basic comment is the man, no matter what he is, he's a crook and he's a habitual liar. You can't believe anything he says. But also, I'd like to comment about your presentation what I find is the volume from your speaking is ahead of the video. In other words, the video lags behind the voices.
Oh, okay.
And I could also see that Judy has her computer in front of her, but when she speaks, it's broken up.
Well, Judy's not using the mic because of what we've had to do in here, Chester. There's only one mic and it's on my desk over here.
Okay.
Yeah, and that might explain the delay as well. I'll have to look into the delay.
Yeah, it's the video that's the delay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that feedback. Where are we at? What are we doing? I've got the document of possible topics in front of me. I've been adding things that you guys have been talking about. There's a couple of different news articles that I included. I've dropped a link here too. If you don't get this, let me know. It should be sent out in your email of the meeting. I try to add to it. And so things that we cover here, I put into the document. You can go back to that same email. You can get into the same document. And it'll have stuff that's updated from today. Yeah, Irving.
Scientists is now coming, Chinese scientists is now becoming, getting back into the scientific community of China. He went to jail for 3 years on what looked like a stupid charge. He was editing genetic material, going into human embryos and editing them, and he went to jail for practicing medicine. He came out of jail 2 years ago, but this guy is one of the leading scientists in the world. What he feels is he can go in and edit the genetic material of human beings to avoid the predisposition. And that will be, there's a lot of,
around for a long time.
that's exactly right. There's research being done extensively in this area.
Yeah.
And this guy might be the smartest guy of all of them. And he-
Tay-Sachs.
What?
Tay-Sachs is one of the diseases they're looking at. There's one that's particularly among the Ashkenazi
Right.
Jews. I
Right.
can't think of what that disease is.
Right, but
They
the
think
point is that
genetically modified.
this may be the thing that will eliminate a lot of diseases that are in existence today.
Do you know where you read the article?
I
Or
read
some-
too many newspapers, I don't know.
something from the title, a Chinese scientist, what?
One of the
Leading
other papers that
geneticists.
I read is one called 1440. They have a lot of different type of science articles like that. Maybe it's 1440.
But he was put in jail for this kind of manipulation?
3 years in jail for practicing medicine without a license.
Okay.
Obviously, the entire scientific community is aghast at this because they feel that by interfering with genetic material, you're changing the evolution of human beings.
Sure.
Which is probably accurate.
It's definitely.
That part they're against. And that's what's got him in trouble. He now supposedly has disavowed that. But he's one of the most brilliant scientists in this area. And that's good.
Wait,
It's in the Guardian.
Human beings per se, though, at least.
Can you shoot me a copy of the link?
No, actually. he had
Put it in the doc?
Sure. Yeah.
He edited 2 children, 2 twins, and another child. And they don't know, the interesting part is they're not telling us how these kids are living today. But he did edit 3 children. We went in and edited them, and that's what got him in trouble.
There was.
Yeah.
I understood it was orthopedic.
No. And when you consider it, of course, the religious groups are going to be the ones that are going to, you know,
Put it in.
Well,
they'll be at the forefront of hanging this guy.
you know, there was all that stuff a few years ago about CRISPR, their ability to genetically modify DNA, just like checking boxes. And all I can say is that we are probably going to an age where pregnancy, there's an app for that.
Okay, that one is when he was
picking eyes and nose and hair and diseases. Like, why wouldn't we screen every disease that we could out of the next generation? We would try and do that.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah,
Why would they make them all blonde and blue-eyed?
because they're Nazis.
You're sitting on a very
You're saying
fine
it could happen,
line.
depending.
Yeah, there's a
A very
I,
fine line there.
you're getting into an area that I've really about regulation, because I really do believe that technology will do whatever it can do. And so it's up to us as a community to decide what those things are that are okay for technology to do. We have to take that responsibility.
Now in reverse. It's going in two ways. Technology is advancing, and evolution is going down.
Well, I think that's a good discussion to have. Who's to say that technology being involved in our evolution isn't evolution itself, that we wouldn't create our own ability to change what we are as we emerge as a species? I think there's room for that kind of thought.
Well,
Maybe.
that's a term, but things that happen that you don't expect, this has already happened. I forgot the term for it. And it's shaped our time, the last 10 years, tremendously.
We've definitely, we've had people that have survived things that 100 years ago they could not have survived, only because of the technology that's evolved around us that we've discovered and moved forward. I think it's just the next steps in evolution that we're looking at.
Medically, my wife and I are both
Yeah.
I had a surgery that put back a third of my eyesight in one eye, or nearly that. That was the medical breakthrough of the year 7 years ago. That didn't exist. Prior to that, everybody was completely blind. And then my wife survived a cancer that should have killed her, but because of new technology, she's healthy right now.
I always refer to my father as being an example of modern technology. He would have been dead 3 times in my life if it wasn't for modern technology. Actually makes me a little fearful because he's got better health care than I do. Live a good life.
Technology. I quit business when I was 34 years old. I was allergic to it. I was a businessman. It's reasonably successful. And it wasn't for me. Most people, a lot of people leave the corporate structure and that because they're not comfortable with it. Had I owned one item at television, affordable television, then I would have probably built a huge business.
Well, that's what.
The communication of just that one item.
That is something that's interesting now, is that you hear these stories of businesses starting with a telephone.
How about a computer?
Yeah, right?
About everything we did was written. Payroll, everything. But there was nothing, nothing digital. And so the work, I forget the word, was 100 times. Not 10 times, 100 times. Like doing payroll. How about people can run a business in China from this room right there? That's awesome. That's science fiction.
And it's right now. It's happening right now. It's science fiction and it's happening right now.
Always is.
Did you, I don't know if you guys paid attention to the Supreme Court hearings on Section 230. We have talked about Section 230 in the past. This is the provision that allows for things like Facebook to exist without having to worry about being sued for what their users say. This is, some people consider it the key, the cornerstone in which the internet has evolved to what it is now, is this kind of protection that distinguishes between a platform and a publisher. And it allows places like Twitter to clean up the speech that goes on there without being held liable for picking or choosing what they think is clean. It is being readdressed right now in the courts. I knew that this case was coming up. I didn't bother to share it with you guys at the time because we've beaten 230 to death at different times. But there was this case of somebody that was killed in Paris, a terrorist attack. the feeling from the lawyers are that these by Islamic videos that they found on YouTube, and they're suing YouTube for suggesting radicalizing videos to the people that were watching them. This is the first time with this new Supreme Court, I was fairly impressed with them. It seemed like they had some very, very reasonable concerns with even approaching this topic. And their concerns were how they seem to be knowledgeable in how internet works. And this is the biggest fear from messing with 230 is to break the way the internet works right now. If 230 were to go away, I don't think a Facebook or a YouTube would stop working. But I do think that smaller sites, because they don't have the kind of legal recourses that a Facebook or a YouTube has, they would have to shut their doors because they couldn't fortify themselves against any kind of lawsuit that might come against them for things like slander, for things like I don't know, what can we say? Sharing Nazi propaganda or something of that nature. If a small site decided to moderate that stuff, then they could be held liable without the legal recourses to protect.
About interesting cases today, the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments of whether Biden's school debt relief has standing. So they're not going to decide the case, but the interesting part of it is it's being challenged by states, big organizations, but it's being challenged by individuals who feel that it's not fair. So the Supreme Court is hearing, this entire, giant, probably 1,000 lawyers, and then you got these two little students that had the right to sue on the opposite end.
Well, that being said, going back to 230 for a moment, because 230 is tech, and this is a computer club, and so that's really what we're talking about is how these things are affecting technology. And I put a link in this document. It does a good job of expressing some of the concerns. Even the I Like Beer dude, Intelligent, when he talked about internet and their concerns with even addressing this case, and they, more than one of them made it clear that this seemed like an issue for Congress and not the Supreme Court. And I have to say, I sure have changed. I've gone back and forth on these issues. I think the protection is really important. At the same time, these algorithms have produced some of the most vile and ugly things, and they've done it in the terms of profit. And so I think there has to, in my opinion, there's got to be some kind of delineation of liability between people just sharing and liking and consuming to what an algorithm is spitting in front of them.
Problem is that we're already way over-regulated, and it becomes arbitrary how they regulate it. Not a good idea.
Well, and I listened to a tech pundit talk about what happened in California with this AB5, where they were trying to get Uber to do healthcare and workman's comp and give those drivers the kind of security they expect real workers to have. And because of the power of lobbyists in that state, the thing just turned into a fiasco, and still is, because it got passed into law. And what it really meant was freelancers couldn't work as freelancers any longer. You could not be a freelance journalist without having all of these other things in place. Somebody taking care of your health care, somebody guaranteeing your workman's comps. And so it made it nearly ridiculous to work as a freelancer. And there were a number of freelance journalists that ended up moving out of California just so they could continue to pursue their career in that fashion. And at the same time, the lobbyists were able to exclude the very companies that they were trying to affect. So they passed this law with an exemption for Uber and Lyft, which was exactly what they were trying to regulate. So it's, you're not wrong. It's got to be done in a smart way. And that is a great example of it not being done in a smart way.
For Burdock and the Fox News and that kind of thing.
As far as
Truth rather than innuendo or lying, outright lying. I mean, some of these social networks particularly, they can put anything on there. Well, Fox News was doing that, and I see perhaps somewhat, at least a slowing down of that kind of thing.
You know, I heard an interesting comment about Fox News that's very funny. And Chester, you can go next after this. All they got to do is take the word news out of their title, and then they can continue to do what they do. It's the purporting to be a news source that's getting them in trouble. If they would just be the Inquirer, they're fine. Yes, Chester.
Yeah, let me comment on several things. First, I agree with you that this is the Section 230 is a congressional issue, not a Supreme Court issue. But I would like to point out that newspapers, radio stations, television, magazines, they do not get the benefits of a Section 230. So why should the internet have the benefit of a 230 when no one else does? And the last thing that you were talking about, what was that subject? I lost
Fox News.
Fox News.
Fox, put news in quotes.
He's got a great point, though. Why
Okay.
should-
First of all, yeah, let me comment on that because I watch Fox. I'm a favorite watcher of Fox.
Yeah, of course.
They have both commentary, news commentary, and news reporting, and there is a distinction when we are doing either. So there is rules that they have to follow, and the same for all the networks.
Yeah. I think that when you talk about protection, well, what is it you're thinking that the protection is that like a Facebook gets that a newspaper doesn't?
I think Section 230 should be eliminated so that they have to do the.
So the big concerns is that if 230 was eliminated, then the only players in this space would be big players with big legal guns because little players couldn't afford to take the risk.
Well, that's not exactly correct. How about little newspapers and little radio stations? They have the same issue, but they take care of that. They do due diligence so that they don't have that problem.
Well, yeah, but Chester, little newspapers are owned by big companies like Rupert Murdoch. I mean, that's the only reason they exist anymore is because they've got big legal guns, and they exist to sell advertising. They don't exist in form any longer.
Some are and some aren't. The same, there are local newspapers and there are big newspapers. So, and the same thing for radio. There are radio stations nationwide and there are local radio stations, but they're all, none of them have the benefit of 230.
There's a scope issue too. Corporations are able to reach a larger number of people than a little local newspaper.
But the big issue is none of that. The big issue is once for profit. If they make liability in the internet, that's the end of it. That would be world changing.
Which one's for profit?
All of the private newspapers, all of the Murdochs and all of that, and all.
So Facebook isn't for profit?
The internet isn't.
But Facebook, well, I'm asking specifically, Facebook isn't for profit? Yeah. Twitter isn't for profit?
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
But how can you separate?
Well, and that's the point that the Supreme Court was making, is that this is the way the internet works. If if you start monkeying with these dials, that you're going to break the internet. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's the reason they all approached it with enough insight to realize they didn't want to touch it. And I think that's right where we are right now. We're like, it's like a bomb ready to go off. They don't want to touch it. They want smarter people to deal with these issues. They're wise enough to know that they don't know. What?
Well, I think there's a difference. Okay, so you have Facebook and Twitter, okay?
Mhm.
But Facebook and Twitter aren't hiring people to make commentaries. They're you, me, everybody making their statements. Okay, Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, they're hiring those people to make those statements.
Sure.
Those people on Fox News aren't really news people. They're commenters.
Yeah, yeah.
They're both. They're
Yeah, I
both.
agree. So they're both. I mean, but it is very slanted journalism, but it's all slanted journalism at this point.
But they all blame each other. Just
Well-
like you've always
They
heard
all
through
claim
this
to be
whole
impartial.
political thing. They all either claim to be impartial or the other one's wrong.
Well, again, what 230 does is that it distinguishes between a publisher and a platform. And so it allows like for example, if I called you, Linda, and we